The Colares UFO flap. When the Brazilian military hunted UFOs in 1977, beams from unknown craft attacked an entire island, forcing Brazil's Air Force to deploy Operation Prato to document the casualties. Colares Island sits in the vast delta of the Amazon River, where fresh water meets the Atlantic and the jungle gives way to scattered fishing villages connected more by boat than road. In 1977, this remote corner of Pará, Brazil becomes the center of a phenomenon so threatening that the Brazilian Air Force deploys a secret military operation to document what is attacking the civilian population. The craft arrive at night. They direct beams of light at residents with surgical precision. The beams burn, they puncture, they drain. And when the military investigators finally arrive with cameras and medical personnel, they document something unprecedented in the history of government UAP investigation: a sustained assault on human beings by unidentified aerial phenomena. The phenomenon begins in the autumn months of 1977, when residents of Colares and surrounding communities along the delta report sightings of strange craft moving through the night sky. The descriptions vary in detail but converge on certain characteristics: disc-shaped objects, cylindrical forms, torpedo-like silhouettes that hover and maneuver with impossible agility. The craft do not simply observe, they act. Witnesses report that the objects descend toward homes, toward individuals working outdoors at night, toward fishermen on boats. From the craft emerge beams of light, narrow and focused, that strike people directly. The beams are not ambient illumination, they are targeted. The first victims describe a sensation of intense heat at the point of contact. The skin burns, hair falls away from the impact site. Puncture marks appear, small and precise, as though something has penetrated the tissue. Witnesses report feeling drained, exhausted, as though energy has been extracted from their bodies through the beam itself. The injuries are not psychological. They are physical, visible, and consistent across multiple victims. Medical professionals on the island begin documenting cases: burns, lesions, puncture wounds, blood vessel damage beneath the skin. The pattern repeats. Approximately 40 residents sustain significant injuries over the course of weeks. 2 individuals perish in circumstances that local residents attribute to the attacks, though formal medical attribution remains unestablished. The fear spreads faster than the injuries. Families abandon their homes at night, fleeing into the jungle or gathering in groups for safety. Fishermen refuse to go out after dark. Women and children sleep in clusters, believing that the craft target individuals who are isolated. The phenomenon does not relent. The craft return night after night, and the beams continue to strike. The island is under siege, and the source of the assault defies explanation. The Brazilian Air Force receives reports of the situation and makes a decision that will become historic in the field of UAP research. Rather than dismiss the claims or deploy a token investigation, the military launches a full operational response. The mission receives a code name: Operation Prato. The operation deploys Captain Iringeia Holanda as commanding officer, along with military photographers, investigators, and support personnel. The mission parameters are clear: document the phenomenon, document the injuries, and determine what is happening on Colares Island. Captain Holanda and his team arrive on the island and establish a base of operations. They interview witnesses. They examine injured residents. They deploy photographers with instructions to capture images of the craft if and when they appear. The team does not wait long. The craft return, and the military personnel witness them directly. Holanda himself observes the objects maneuvering through the night sky, hovering with no visible means of propulsion, directing beams of light toward the ground. The photographers begin their work. Over the course of the deployment, Operation Prato produces approximately 500 photographs of the craft. The images capture disc-shaped objects, cylindrical forms, and the beams themselves. The documentation is extensive, methodical, and undeniable. The medical component of Operation Prato provides the most disturbing evidence. Military-deployed physicians examine the injured residents and compile detailed records. The burns are real. The puncture wounds are real. The blood vessel damage beneath the skin is consistent with descriptions of directed energy exposure. The physicians document patterns of injury that align with the victim's accounts of being struck by beams. The injuries are not uniform, but they share characteristics: localized burns, hair loss at impact sites, puncture marks that suggest penetration by something narrow and precise, and a systemic exhaustion that victims describe as a draining of energy. The medical files become a cornerstone of Operation Prato's documentation, providing physical evidence that the phenomenon is not mass hysteria or fabrication. Captain Hollander compiles his findings into a classified report. The photographs, the medical records, the witness interviews, and the operational logs are gathered into a file that the Brazilian Air Force seals from public access. The deployment ends. The personnel withdraw from Colares. The craft, for reasons unknown, cease their attacks. The island returns to an uneasy normalcy, but the residents remember. The scars remain. The fear lingers. For nearly 2 decades, Operation Prato exists only as rumor and whispered confirmation among Brazilian researchers and military personnel. The files remain classified. The Brazilian government does not acknowledge the operation publicly. The photographs and medical records are locked away in national archives. Then, in 1997, Captain Hollander agrees to give an interview to A.J. Gevierd, a Brazilian UFO researcher who has spent years advocating for disclosure of military UAP files. The interview is recorded on video. Hollander speaks on the record about Operation Prato. He confirms the deployment. He confirms the photographs. He confirms the injuries to residents. He confirms that the craft were real, that they were documented by military personnel, and that the experience profoundly disturbed him and the other investigators. Hollander describes the craft as maneuvering with intelligence, as though controlled by something aware of the human observers below. He describes the beams as deliberate, as targeted actions rather than random emissions. He expresses distress at what he witnessed and at the knowledge that the phenomenon involved harm to civilian populations. The interview is candid, detailed, and haunting. Shortly after giving the interview, Captain Hollander passes away under circumstances officially attributed to suicide. The video recording of his testimony becomes one of the most significant pieces of evidence in Brazilian UAP research. A military officer speaking on the record about a government operation that documented craft attacking human beings. In 2005, the Brazilian government responds to decades of pressure from researchers and advocacy groups by releasing a portion of the Operation Prato files. The release includes photographs of the craft, medical records of injured residents, and operational reports from the deployment period. The documents confirm the scale and thoroughness of the investigation. The photographs show objects in the sky that defy conventional identification. The medical records detail the injuries sustained by Colares residents. The operational logs document the military's presence on the island and the systematic documentation of the phenomenon. The release is partial. The Brazilian government acknowledges that the complete Operation Prato files remain classified, and the full extent of the documentation has not been made public. The Colares case stands alone in the documented history of UAP research as the only instance in which a government deployed a military operation, specifically in response to craft injuring civilian populations. The physical evidence is extensive. The medical documentation is thorough. The testimony of Captain Hollander provides an official anchor that few UAP cases possess. The partial release of the Operation Prato files in 2005 gives researchers a foundation for arguing that the complete record represents the most significant unreleased government UAP file in Brazilian national archives. The beams that struck the residents of Colares in 1977 left scars that can still be traced in medical records and in the memories of survivors. The photographs taken by military personnel during Operation Prato captured images of craft that remain unexplained. The classified files that still rest in Brazilian archives hold documentation of a phenomenon that challenges fundamental assumptions about the nature of UAP encounters. The island of Colares, remote and quiet in the Amazon Delta, carries the weight of a question that has never been fully answered. What attacked the people of Colares, and why did it stop? If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. Brazil, this story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.